Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's Ginnie Graham Show. And I'm here with Michael Brose, who I've known forever, it seems like. Michael was a member of our community advisory board, but more importantly, he spent a quarter of a century running the and expanding the Mental Health Association of Oklahoma, and has a wealth of information, and also serves as sort of I don't know, I describe you as sort of a connector of people. You still
I'll take that.
still a therapist, still working in counseling, but uh, I know that you're about bringing people together on issues and things like that.
Yeah, that's always been, again, I'm a social worker by training, and that's a kind of a hallmark of social work is you bring people together to talk about issues and difficult things that need to be addressed, and you do it collectively and inclusively. There's nothing that I've seen that it works, and I haven't found anything better yet.
Well, I'd say you're an expert because you took the Mental Health Association from a very small nonprofit into this statewide organization. So I know something works. But this gets into our topic this week, which is homelessness, but very specifically, the state legislature has some proposed legislation. It's just proposed. Don't know whether it'll get a committee hearing or not, but it's causing a lot of anxiety, talk, and frankly, just targeting of homeless people. And specifically, we have Senate Bill 484 from Lisa Standridge.
Right,
And this bill would, if passed, forbid cities from using funds to support any homeless shelters and any homeless outreach programs. She says she's going to amend it to exempt domestic violence shelters, but it would it would ban all cities except for basically Oklahoma City and Tulsa.
right.
Right. And then the other bill is House Bill 1798 from Del Curbs. In his, he would allow it's sort of a companion to Standridge, would allow cities to use funds for one-way bus tickets out of state. And while I want to make fun of it by saying, "Oh yeah, I might be homeless around spring break, so I can get a free trip to Florida," it's a very serious um, view and cynical view of homelessness. But
Right.
I have my own thoughts, but I'm just going to start with you. You look at things from the macro level. You can kind of see it overall. You've worked with a lot of municipalities in the state. What are your thoughts on these? What I mean, it's bad public policy in my opinion, but I'll let you kind of take it from here.
Yeah, it's terrible public policy. And, it's, of course, I still consult with the Tulsa Day Center and
Mhm.
still communicate with people across the state, but particularly here in the Tulsa area about issues related to being individuals who are unhoused or homeless and unsheltered. We're constantly dealing with that. This bill, I'll kind of take them one at a time. Senate Bill 484, and I mean, it's amazing the outcry in the community that really tries to work with these individuals. And again, I think it's important for your viewers, listeners, to always keep in mind that I have a voice. You have a voice. Others have a voice. The individuals we're talking about don't have a voice. They're living in a situation where they're unhoused. They're worried about where their next meal is coming from. They're worried about where they're going to sleep tonight. Is it safe? And they're trying and want to get out of that situation, but it's hard sometimes for people to really understand and appreciate the barriers that unhoused individuals face to get out of a state of being unhoused, homeless, back into the housing community, the housed community, the rest of the community as a whole. And so you've got this bill that comes up, and this basically, I mean, the first thing right out of the box is, um, some of these business leaders, unfortunately, business people, not exclusively, but a lot of it comes out of a business community where that they feel, or the perception is, that these individuals hurt their business, their ability to make a living. And uh, Jenny, I'm as empathic as I possibly can be. And again, the other bill, the part of the bill which is ironic, is that not allowing money to be used for outreach, right?
Right.
And what is that outreach about? That outreach is to help people get out of homelessness and get rehoused.
Well,
And I
that's what
say
I don't
rehab,
understand about it is
yeah,
for
it's
people who
like,
are upset about homelessness. I feel like the city in Tulsa was guilty of this for a long time, where we just put it on the backs of philanthropists and nonprofits. But I believe cities have a responsibility to care for and try to find solutions to these societal issues because they can't do it alone. So, wouldn't it make sense for the city to help and partner with these organizations? So, whether it's business leaders or whoever, residents who don't want to see it or deal with it won't. Isn't
right.
that the whole
And
point?
yeah, and I have to brag about Tulsa and Oklahoma City both. I've seen, I've worked in both cities. I live here in Tulsa. I've lived here for my wife and I and family for over 40 years, but I've also worked and developed a lot of relationships in Oklahoma City, and both Oklahoma City and Tulsa, out of their mayor's offices, they can always do more, but they do work and partner with nonprofits, faith-based, not in nonprofits, to address these things, and they see it as a very important. And I think with our new mayor in Tulsa, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think that Mayor Nichols is really sees this and is on point with seeing this as a big part of his administration, that he wants to address that, and recognizes, and they recognize they've got a partner, not just with nonprofits and faith-based organizations, but with the business people themselves. And law enforcement is very important. But the thing right off the bat in this bill is that the first thing that came to my mind, and I've thought about it a lot and hasn't changed my mind, this would potentially give smaller communities, and some of these would be big. I mean, Senator Standridge lives in Norman. It's a pretty big community, not as big as Oklahoma City or Tulsa, but would give these communities, other than Oklahoma City and Tulsa, basically an excuse to transport or push out their homeless problems and push them into the larger cities, who already are struggling with their own unhoused populations, respective. And so this is uh, it's bad public policy, and it borderlines on, in my opinion, on meanness, and it gives just a terrible idea or a vision of what that could potentially look like. And then the other bill, Curb's bill, the one-way ticket. I mean, the irony of that is, as you know, Jenny, I've had a running dialogue and argument with uh, people in Tulsa, law enforcement, business people, and others that claim that other cities are busing their homeless into Tulsa because we have all these great services, and so they're busing them here, and that's not true. That's a myth. It's an urban legend. I challenge anybody, and I still think that that echo chamber, that state, that repeats that, uh, it it continues, even though I've had a challenge to law enforcement in particular for over, well, now going on 20 years. Bring me the information. What town, what organization, where was it? I will take it and I'll follow up on that. And because we don't do that, that is a big no-no in this work. That just doesn't go on. We actually don't even think about it because it's so inappropriate, and what have you. Would I say that anybody who had homeless ever stepped off a bus in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Oklahoma City or any other town. Yes, that's happened. People come from lots of reasons. Sometimes they come from rural Oklahoma, or sometimes occasionally from other states. But to bus people, put them on a bus, send them, that's I just don't have any. There's no evidence. I don't know of anybody that can actually produce evidence that that is
Yeah,
happening and
it
going
it
on.
did.
But this will give them an excuse to do that.
Right. And it does kind of seem like it plays into that urban myth. Like, yeah, I've
It
heard it, so
plays
we're
into
going to
the
do it too.
urban myth,
It
right?
plays into
And
that.
it's yeah, and so it's like we're complaining that we don't, that we about these busing. Oh, but hey, maybe we could do that. Let's do that. We'll give them a one-way ticket, and we'll bus them to Missouri or to Texas or to Kansas or to New Mexico or Colorado. Really, and so this would be a stain on our state to be so mean spirited and so crass.
Right.
That we would do something like that. And these are people from our own communities, and every community needs to. In many communities, smaller communities, I've consulted with them. I've talked to them. A lot of communities here in Oklahoma are very, very active, and including Norman. I just talked to
Right.
someone who was used to be one of my former students, called me, and she was extremely upset. She does outreach to homeless there in Oklahoma City, and she called me up to say, "Did you know about this bill?" And I said, "Well, we're just now hearing about it too." And she said, "Well, everybody's here really upset about it, and we're embarrassed about it. That because that's not what we want to do. That's not what we need to do. That's not what we should be doing." And so, it's bad public policy. It's just not going to work to begin with.
Mhm.
But it's also, in my opinion, mean spirited.
And the politics behind it, specifically with Senator Standridge, she's sort of following in the approach that her husband had, Rob Standridge,
That's what I
before her,
understand. Yes.
because like as you said, Norman, what tends to happen with Rob, and it's apparently happening with her, they're mad at the Norman City Council. So the Norman City Council has been considering an emergency homeless shelter in their downtown.
Uh-huh.
And just like Rob Standridge got upset with the Norman City Council using some public safety funds to fund some mental health. Then he went to the state legislature to get it banned. Well, she's doing the
Right.
exact same thing. She gets mad
Right.
at the Norman City Council and the way they're operating. So she goes to the state capitol to use the hammer of the state capitol. It takes her beef there. So we all have to deal with her personal beef. And my thinking is, why don't the Stanridges just run for the Norman City Council to deal with their beefs than making the rest of us deal with it? But the other thing that had me thinking about this was it's sort of the idea of that rural homelessness, that there's first of all some denial that they're homeless in small towns. And I think back to when I was growing up, and I can think of three kids right off the bat when I was in high school who were homeless. They were couch hopping. One kid somehow was able to rent an apartment in our little town, but it exists there. And I can't, and those are kids. And I would imagine most districts can, through the McKinney Vento Act, track
Right.
some of their homeless kids. But it does seem like it wouldn't help to just, first of all, ban any kind of outreach or ban any kind of obstacle, but to just force them to move, it would be harmful for those families in the way that kids need consistency. A lot of these families have other family and friends around them. I mean, from a social work standpoint, wouldn't these bills be more traumatic in trying to help people who are facing, and not all people have mental health issues either who are homeless. I mean,
Oh,
a small, and I think you and I have spoken a lot that the people we see on the street, that's only like what, 10-15% of all homelessness. But wouldn't this actually hurt and cause more trauma on those families if these went into place?
oh, without a doubt. I mean, if you don't have a shelter, there's no outreach. Okay, you're going to take away the outreach. So, what does outreach do? Or maybe your viewers, listeners don't understand. Outreach is about engaging people, finding out, asking them what's going on. Are you unhoused? How can we work with you and help you get rehoused and get back into the workforce or into the housing market, or get what you need, not starve to death, freeze to death, die of heat related illness, what have you. And let's get you into the shelter. And while you're in our shelter, And if they're in the shelter, and we struggle with this all the time here in Tulsa, getting people, we want people, more people don't sleep outside. So if you take away a shelter, not only are you taking away the outreach, you're taking away. So now where they're not gone away, they're going to be sleeping outside in your community. Is that what you really want? And so we want them in the shelter. We know where they're at. Now we have a place we can begin to address their needs and engage with them to get them out of homelessness. That's what outreach is all about. Getting people. We want to help people get housed, rehoused, back into the community, what have you. But you have to know where they're at, and we need them safe. And I mean, it costs more money. I mean, this has been well
Yeah.
documented. It costs a lot more money to a community to leave people out on the street homeless than it does to get them into shelter and eventually into housing. And so, again, that's where bad public policy comes in here with these two bills. And so, and I mean, in what I worry about right now, Jenny, is that we are in this really weird political space that we're
Mhm.
in this country, at the federal level, at the state level, and at the local levels, and it just goes
Right.
all the way down, where I call it, I got mine. I'm sure sorry you don't have yours, but tough luck. And that's not the values I was raised on. By the way, I don't know if you know this about me. My parents died when I was young. My dad died when I was 10. My mother died when I was a senior in high school. I was on my own when I was a senior in high school. I was technically homeless.
Wow.
Now, I had a lot of extended family around me. They weren't going to let me sleep on the streets, but I was homeless, and so I know what that's like and how lonely it is, and how you feel, what have you. And this is a state with a lot of faith-based people, and I'm hoping that those faith-based people are people that join in standing up about this is not what we are taught in our places of worship, to how to treat people, and um, you know,
Yeah,
uh,
I've struggled with that because,
yeah,
that's the glaring thing with me. These bills that pop up, we've got a legislature, and most of, people in there, they wrap themselves in as people of faith. And people talk about the Oklahoma Standard being about how we help out people and how we stand up for people. And Christianity in particular has a real stronghold here. And yet these bills seem counter to that. I mean, I'm a person of faith. I'm of the Christian faith. We've never talked about faith between us in the half of or the
right.
25 years we've known each other, but I know that you are too, and I struggle with how to connect that to people. That for people who are church going, faith filled people, how I, that's a faith I came from, and that's that social outreach, social justice for another term, um, to just help people who don't have the advantages that we have. And so when you are talking to a person of faith who comes from that, how do you, what do you say to them to get them to connect with, that these kind of policies are not good for people? I mean, do you approach it differently when you're talking to someone who's pretty strong in faith, or do you not? I mean, I don't know. It just I've always been having a hard time connecting that in this state.
Well, I've had these conversations with people in leadership in my own church, and I teach. I'm an adjunct professor out at ORU, and I talk to my students about this, and I always go back to, what does it say? Again, we forget. I'm going to speak from a Christian perspective here for a minute. Uh, Jesus was homeless.
Mhm. He depended on the charity of others
He
as
did.
he
He
preached.
slept outside.
Yeah.
He's very clear about that, and he had, he traveled around, and like you say, he depended on people to help and support him. But he was homeless, and who did he hang around with? It says tax collectors and sinners,
Yeah.
and so and prostitutes, and so and he was criticized for that and all. But that's who he was. And again, I always go back with my students. I always go back to the story of the Good Samaritan.
Mhm.
And who are the Samaritans? Well, they were people that the Jews avoided at all costs, wouldn't even walk through their land. And he tells one parable and suddenly it reverses the polarity, and now we refer to the Good Samaritan.
Right.
This is the time for Good Samaritans here in Oklahoma to stand up, and
Mhm.
our unhoused brothers and sisters, people that have grown up, and many, I've given many, many tours of our housing and when I was at the association, and I can't tell you how many times I'd be given a tour and somebody would say, "Oh my gosh, that guy there, he grew up down the street from me," or, "Oh no, I can't believe it, that guy is my cousin." I had those things happen a number of times. I have, I have looked at the enemy, and he is us. We have to look within ourselves, and we don't want to lose our collective souls about caring for the least of these, and thus by the grace of God there go I. And so and the satisfaction it is to see somebody, and the joy that comes from helping someone who's unhoused, maybe has a mental illness or a substance abuse issue, and helping them get treatment, get better, get into housing, and reestablish their lives. I've personally seen it over and over again, and I'm glad I'm on that side of that fence and not on the side of these two bills, because this sounds harsh, but I think those people should be ashamed of themselves. And it's not the Oklahoma way. It's not the Oklahoma that I've come to know and love, and the charitable way that we do our live our lives here in Oklahoma. And I think it's time on these bills, and that's why I hope they don't even get a hearing. They seem to be shut down and not even get a hearing. And then let's get back to the real business of helping people get off the streets, out of the shelters, and back into the fabric of everyday life. And we can do that. It's very doable. I've watched it happen many
Mhm.
times.
Yeah, and it's in one of the things that's been working, like you had said in Tulsa, it's when the city did finally step up to say, you know what, we're going to partner. We're going to use some of our funds to help this societal issue, because it shouldn't just be a church. It shouldn't just be depending on philanthropists. That we're stronger to bet. We're stronger together, and I like that. And it's working well. And we're getting
And
there. We've got ways to go, but we're getting there.
yeah, well, we did. And if you really look, and I've studied this quite a bit, if you look at the cities around the country who have made real progress, the one thing, the common denominator that we've identified is that strong, strong leadership on it comes out of the mayor's office. The mayor has a bully pulpit. And out of that bully pulpit, he can bring people together and convene and challenge organizations and entities and institutions, law enforcement, nonprofits, faith-based groups. They can communicate and say, you guys have got to help. We need your help figuring this out, and we want to partner with you and help you and fund you, but you got to do this work, and you got to do it collectively and together, and we're going to work together on it. When you see the cities that have done that out of the mayor's office, you've actually seen their numbers go down. And I think Mayor Nichols is. I've had conversations with him. Mac Haltom and I at the Day Center where I'm a consultant. We've had conversations with him together, and he's listening, and I think they're on point there.
And I think that that works for Tulsa, Norman, or Gotebo. I mean, it's small towns. That's what I don't like about these kind of bills, is that it we already have a hard time getting leaders from small towns and urban areas to come together and talk to each other. That these kind of bills drive that wedge when the homeless issue and the housing issue, affordable housing, that's affecting all of us. So if we can just drop these kind of things as a state, it seems like we'll have better solutions. And then maybe the lessons we're learning from Tulsa and Oklahoma City can help Norman and Enid and Lawton and Gotebo. So,
Yeah, and
so yeah.
I'll hold outreach workers and entities accountable too. I've heard and I've confronted some of my peers. They've said, I had a peer in this business say, "Well, I heard this one business guy really talk down about the homeless, and I'm not going to do business with that individual." And I said, that is the exact opposite. We need to go and sit down with that business owner and listen to their issues and needs, and how do we partner with you and help you with the homelessness that's around your business. I don't have a problem with that at all, and that's on us. And so I said, I really, this is my peer, and I confronted him. I said, that's not a I don't think that's the right approach or solution. I think that's just it's just it's going tit for tat, and that's not going to get us where we need to go.
So I appreciate you again taking time out to talk about this issue. I want to give guests the last word. So any last thoughts you want to give on this?
I just think we're as Oklahomans, we're better than this. These two bills, the content and the spirit or lack thereof behind these two bills. I think we're way better than that, and I think it's time for people on the side of faith, people of a high moral fortitude and courage to step up and let's shut these bills down, and let's get back to the real work of trying to address the needs of our brothers and sisters who have been unfortunate and have lost their housing, help them regain that and regain their lives again. We're good enough to do that, and I believe that with all my heart.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate it. And hopefully these bills can be shut down and we can get to better solutions. So thank you very
I
much.
think Thanks for having me on, Jenny. It's a real honor and a pleasure. Thank you very much.